I was adjusting the FBI wire taped to my ribs when my billionaire boss walked in and asked, "Do you want $2 million, Jennifer, or do you want to die poor? To let cancer patients die?" The marble floor was cold against my palms. I dropped to my knees when I saw the spreadsheet, not praying, hiding behind the $40,000 desk, trying not to breathe, trying not to exist. Diana Cross, my boss, the billionaire, the woman on the cover of Forbes, stood 6 feet away reviewing the real clinical trial data. The data that showed her miracle cancer drug didn't work. The data that showed patients were dying. The data she'd buried. That's when she noticed me. Our eyes met. She smiled. "Jennifer, you're working late." The document was still on her screen. Phase 3 trial results. Confidential. I'd seen enough in my 2 seconds of frozen terror to understand. The drug failed. Patients deteriorated. Tumors grew. People died. And she'd reported the opposite to the FDA. "I was just dropping off the quarterly reports," I said. My voice sounded normal. "How was that possible?" She clicked her screen off, stood, walked toward me with that same confident stride I'd admired for 8 months. "Let's talk in the conference room." It wasn't a request. We sat across from each other in the same room where I'd watched her pitch investors on this miracle drug, the cure for pancreatic cancer, the one that would save thousands of lives, the one that got her company to $9 billion in market cap, the one that didn't work. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, a non-disclosure agreement and a check, $2 million. My name already printed. "You saw something tonight that's proprietary," she said, voice calm, pleasant. "Clinical trial data is complex, easy to misinterpret. I'd hate for you to draw the wrong conclusions and damage the company." I stared at the check. $2 million. "Sign the NDA. Take the money. Forget what you saw. Simple." My hands were shaking. The trial data showed the drug doesn't work. The trial data is preliminary. We're still analyzing. "You reported positive results to the FDA 3 weeks ago." Her smile didn't change. "Jennifer, you're my executive assistant, not a clinical researcher. You don't understand what you saw." "I have an MBA from Columbia. I understand spreadsheets. Progression-free survival, Diana. 0.8 months. That's worse than placebo." Silence. Then, $2 million. "Or, I make one phone call and you never work in biotech again. Your choice." She stood, left the NDA and check on the table. "Think about it. You have 48 hours. I drove home shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. But to understand how an executive assistant with a Columbia MBA ended up staring at a $2 million bribe, you need to know 3 things. How desperate I was for this job, how much I believed in the mission, and why my father's face wouldn't stop appearing in my mind. 3 years earlier, my father died of pancreatic cancer. Diagnosis to death. 4 months. I watched him disintegrate. The pain. The chemo that didn't work. The hope that died a little more each day. At his funeral, I promised his grave I'd do something that mattered. Something that would make his death mean something. When Cross Therapeutics posted a job for executive assistant to the CEO, I applied immediately. Diana Cross was a legend. Stanford MD, Harvard MBA. She'd founded Cross Therapeutics with one mission: cure the cancers that kill fastest. Pancreatic, ovarian, glioblastoma. In my interview, she said, "My mother died of ovarian cancer. I started this company because watching her die was the worst experience of my life. I never want another family to go through that." I believed her. I took the job at $210,000 a year. I believed we were saving lives. For 8 months, I did my job perfectly, managed her calendar, coordinated clinical trials, prepared investor presentations. She was brilliant, demanding, visionary. I admired her. The first compromise was small. She asked me to backdate a signature on a contract. Just a formality. The deal was already done. The lawyers are being pedantic. I did it. Federal crime, My signature, her instruction. Second compromise, I scheduled meetings labelled board strategy session that were actually with her personal plastic surgeon. I lied to the CFO about where she was. Third, I shredded documents she said were duplicate financial reports. I didn't ask why they needed shredding the day before an audit. By month 6, I was comfortable with small ethical violations. Nothing that hurt anyone, just corporate politics. Everyone does it. Then I saw the real trial data. I stared at that NDA and check for 2 days. $2 million would change my life. Pay off my student loans. Buy my mother a house. Give me freedom. All I had to do was forget what I saw. Forget that patients were taking a drug that didn't work. Forget that families were told their loved ones were getting treatment when they were actually getting poison dressed up as hope. Forget that my father died believing someone, somewhere was working on a cure. I kept seeing his face in the hospital bed, yellow from jaundice, too weak to speak, but his eyes said, "I'm not ready. I have more time. Please." He didn't have more time because there was no cure. But what if there had been? What if someone had developed a real treatment and I'd helped bury it? What if I became the person who let cancer patients die for money? On our 47 of my 48-hour deadline, I called the FBI. I told them everything. The falsified data, the bribe, my own small crimes. The agent said, "We need proof, recordings, documents. Or can you get them?" "She'll know. She'll destroy me." "She's already destroying you, Ms. Park, and she's killing patients." Which matters more? I wore a wire the next day. Diana called me into her office at 9 a.m. "Have you thought about my offer?" My hands were sweating. The wire was taped under my blouse. I could feel it against my skin. If she hugged me, she'd feel it. If she asked me to put my phone in the drawer like she sometimes did, they'd see the wire on the scanner. "I have questions," I said. "Ask." The trial data I saw. How many patients are enrolled? 243. How many showed tumour progression? "Jennifer, you're not a clinician." "How many?" Silence. 208. 85%. My chest tightened. And you reported to the FDA that 73% showed stable disease or better. The data is complex. It's not complex, you lied. Her expression didn't change. I made a strategic decision. The drug works, the trial design was flawed. We're doing a second trial with better parameters. If I report these results, the company dies, the drug dies, and patients lose access to a treatment that could work. "But it doesn't work, Diana. People are dying." "People are dying anyway." Her voice rose. First time I'd ever heard her yell, "That's what cancer does. At least this gives them hope." False hope. Hope is hope, Jennifer. I stood. I can't be part of this. "Then take the money and leave. $2 million. You'll never have to work again. You'll never have to think about this again. My father died of pancreatic cancer." She blinked. I didn't know that. 3 years ago. He was 59. He believed someone was working on a cure. He died believing science would save the next person. "Jennifer, you're not that person. You're the one burying the science." She stood too. "You self-righteous child. You think you understand this industry? You think the FDA cares about truth? They care about politics, money, connections. I have all 3. You have nothing. I have the real data. Which you stole. Which you falsified. Prove it." "I will." Her smile was ice. "No, you won't. Because if you try, I'll bury you. I'll tell the FBI you embezzled company funds. I'll produce evidence. My people are very good at producing evidence. You'll go to prison. I'll go to Davos. Is that a bribe or a threat? It's reality. Take the money, Jennifer. Be smart." I walked out. The FBI raided Cross Therapeutics 72 hours later. Diana was arrested at her office. Perp walk. Cameras everywhere. The biotech world exploded. Her lawyers immediately attacked. Jennifer Park is a disgruntled former employee who stole proprietary data and is facing prosecution for corporate espionage. This is retaliation. The SEC opened an investigation. The FDA pulled the drug. The company's stock went from $90 to $4 in a week. $9 billion in market cap evaporated. 243 patients lost access to the drug. Some of them were angry at me. Their families sent me messages. You took away our hope. You killed them. I wanted to scream, the drug didn't work. I saved them from false hope. But you can't reason with grief. Diana's trial lasted 14 months. I testified for 6 hours. Her lawyers called me a liar, an opportunist, a thief. They showed my small crimes, the backdated signature, the shredded documents. Ms. Park, isn't it true you committed multiple federal crimes while working for Ms. Cross? Yes. So you're a criminal testifying against your former employer for financial gain? I'm not getting financial gain. I lost my career. You're getting immunity. I'm getting the ability to sleep at night. Diana was convicted of securities fraud, wire fraud, and falsifying clinical trial data. Sentenced to 8 years. She'll serve 4 with good behavior. Cross Therapeutics dissolved. 800 employees lost their jobs. 17 clinical trials stopped. Some of those trials were legitimate. Some patients lost access to drugs that might have worked. I lost everything too. My job, obviously. My reputation. I'm blacklisted in biotech. Nobody will hire me. The executive assistant who wore a wire? Who reported her boss? Who destroyed a $9 billion company? I'm radioactive. I lost my apartment. Couldn't pay rent on savings. I live with my mother now, 31 years old. Columbia MBA, living in my childhood bedroom. I lost friends. Half of them said, you should have just quit. Like quitting would have stopped her. Like walking away would have saved those patients. I lost my anonymity. My face was on the news. People recognize me. Some call me a hero. Most call me a rat. I lost my faith in the industry I loved. I thought biotech was about science, cures, hope. But it's about money. It's always about money. What did I gain? The ability to visit my father's grave and tell him someone tried, someone fought, someone refused to let his death be meaningless. The knowledge that 243 patients aren't taking a drug that doesn't work anymore. The knowledge that Diana can't do this to the next trial, the next drug, the next desperate family. The ability to look at myself in the mirror. Some days that feels like enough. Most days it doesn't. People ask if I regret it, if I'd take the $2 million if I could go back. I don't know. I want to say no. I want to be the hero who'd make the same choice every time. But I'm living in my childhood bedroom. I have $18,000 in my bank account. I can't get a job. I wake up at 3 a.m. with panic attacks. Now $2 million would solve all of that. But my father's face wouldn't disappear. The 243 patients wouldn't be saved. Diana would be at Davos. And I'd be the person who let it happen for money. So no, I wouldn't take the money. But some days, I wish I was the kind of person who could. Diana Cross is in minimum security prison. She gives interviews about prosecutorial overreach. Her lawyers are appealing. Her supporters call her a victim of a broken FDA system. A visionary crushed by bureaucracy. I'm in Queens, unemployed, blacklisted. On paper, justice was served. But justice looks different than I thought. It looks like choosing truth and getting poverty. It looks like doing the right thing and losing everything anyway. It looks like being called a hero by strangers and a traitor by the industry you loved. But it also looks like sleeping through the night. Sometimes. It looks like visiting my father's grave without shame. It looks like knowing that $2 million couldn't buy back my soul once I'd seen what I saw. I didn't save my father. I was 3 years too late for that. But maybe I saved someone else's father, someone else's mother, someone else's chance at real treatment instead of false hope. I chose truth. Truth chose poverty. But at least it's honest poverty. And at least when my own kids ask me someday what I did when it mattered, I can tell them I fought. Even when fighting cost me everything. Even when nobody thanked me for it. Even when I lost. because some losses are worth it, and some truths are worth telling, even when they destroy you. If you want to hear more stories about employees who expose their billionaire bosses and the price they paid for telling the truth, subscribe to Billionaire Exposed, where employees expose their billionaire bosses when they don't have the gut to. These stories need to be told, because somewhere out there, someone is facing the same choice I did, and they need to know they're not alone. Help us reach 2,000 subscribers. Hit that button, because somebody needs to hear this.